This rabbit has fainted.
And we are live, my friend. How are you doing today?
Good. We're live. Good. How about you?
I'm a fucking mess. Look at this. I don't even know. I'm a mess. But I'm hey, you froze up. Okay. But I'm glad we're doing it. You got your oversized coffee mug.
Yeah, need it.
Today we're gonna be talking about the benefits of caffeine. Oh, really? You also joined the Instagram.
Two ways, gotta see what's going on.
I love it, man. I've spent a few months trying to learn some of this technology stuff. And then you remember we worked together at Bulldog. It was so simple. I remember I used to make fun of other coaches, how they would just like film too much of like their coaching sessions. But I really took for granted how easy it was to turn around, film some of your athletes, film whatever, post it, and go about my day. I used to think it was such a hassle. But if you remember, I could do if I did 7 to 12 posts, we'd get someone coming into the gym. Someone would contact me online. And I just really took it for granted because now if I want to film some content, it's I have two really nice facilities, but it's I got to go out there with all the fucking equipment. I got to set it up myself. It's to have that access of having coaches and athletes right there where you can film them. It's But anyway, what I want to get to this with you is just a lot of stuff that we never did get to do with Bulldog that I am getting back into the coaching field and the consulting field in health and fitness. I'm still doing the merchandising stuff, but what we're going to do is as a practice for me, because it looks like I'm going to start teaching some of these little mini classes and courses again. And part is to, I think, really help you because we never really got to this. You'll recognize some of this and so forth when you were with me in Jersey. But for the most part, for I'd say well over a decade. I had a partner, Brian. So if those of you tuning in would watch some of my initial podcasts and podcast clips, it was with the guy Brian from More Than Black and White podcast. Brian was one of the first guys that I started working with up in New Jersey to develop the FIA system that was very holistic based. Whoop, and I lost Chris. Get your ass back on, Chris. All right, so and the reason I started doing it with Brian is because Brian is one of those guys who, there we go. Welcome back. Brian is one of those guys who helped me build out the system. Was the first guy who was out there doing Czech seminars with Paul Czech, first guy to go out there and meet Charles Poliquin with me, and really was right next to me building the company and the system. And the biometric system we're going to go through has a lot of influences, because what Brian and I did was we would look at both the economic climate, so to speak, of the gym we were getting hired by to redo their personal training department. And we'd look at, okay, economically speaking, what were the jobs? Were they sitting all day, labor all day? Because gyms have very, very big mixes, especially in the Northeast area. All the way then down to, okay, what were the fun, interesting seminars we wanted to go to? And I'm not talking about ACE or ISSA or NASM. Great beginner level entries, but we would go away for 2 weeks and be in classroom study for 7 days straight. And we would pull out all the relevant information, and then based upon the gym and the people at the gym, maybe injury rates, requests, and based upon what we learned, we could dummy down what we learned and make it very digestible for both coaches who are under basically a lot of stress from gym owners to produce and do sales and memorize. What I've seen mostly in the industry is very poorly represented psychological sales systems that also either misexplain or improperly explain biological concepts, as well as systems that kind of like fool people into buying personal training versus actually creating a system that's, hey, we're gonna take the job of personal trainer and create a career out of it. And what Brian and I did by going out to these very expensive seminars, chopping down the information, making it immediately applicable inside of a system, inside of a large box gym, was that we were able to show personal trainers how to make more money. And what we'd always tell them is this concept: the more you learn, the more you earn. So then we would actually take some of the money we made in the commissions from these contracts with gyms and kick it back to the best producing trainers, if as like a commission bonus, if they were to specifically pick a Charles Poliquin or a Paul Czech seminar, or a couple offshoots. There was MKT, there was Neurosomatic Educators in Tampa. There's a ton of them I could list. So we started to create our own synergistic knowledge base of trainers that we were showing them how to make more money, showing them how to enjoy their job more. The gym owners really didn't care. I'm going to be very honest with you. I've worked with a lot of gym owners. You guys should care more. You just don't. And it's just about the numbers. But the numbers come and they're more sustainable and they last longer if you make the trainers enjoy their career versus just giving them a job. So that's where biometrics is born from. And I'm going to take Chris through it. I'm going to take some different trainers through it in a series of different lives and tape recordings, and we'll just see. We'll see as it goes. So we're also live on Instagram. I keep forgetting about that. We'll see how long that lasts. Let's see, we'll wait to a few people. There we go. Okay. And I'll try to field some questions as we go and we do it. So any questions for me, Chris, before we get started, or anything you want to say? Because we got, I kind of earmarked around 13, 14 minutes. We'd start this before 15 or at 12. Anything you want to say? Or what? I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't even introduce you in the beginning. Oh my God. I'm sorry. It's Sunday, bro. It's Sunday. Who are you?
It is.
Where are you coaching out of now? Right. Because I know you're at Leaks. How can people get a hold of you if they're interested to work with you? Sorry, let's start there. Or let's not start at all. Nope.
What is going on? I'm terribly sorry, John. My internet has been a little bit wonky this past couple of weeks. I've been trying to fix it and whatnot. I'm actually trying to get on Instagram to watch the live so I could see these, and then I was gonna request to request to join you so we get more people to watch. But
Oh, that was a good
um,
idea. Well, here's the thing. Don't apologize for the internet. Definitely apologize for using the word wonky.
it's a little terrible right now. Sorry. Forget
We're
it
gonna.
is a Sunday. It's
This is your.
it is.
I just did a podcast. This is part of your generation's problem, young man.
Yeah.
I just did a your verbiage and your vocabulary. I just did a podcast with this guy Mike Mannion from the military, a little bit older than me, so my generation, and we were laughing because the way you guys will use Wikipedia or Google, we had this thing called Encyclopedia Britannica. So like when we had questions as kids, and our parents didn't know it, they'd be like, why the hell do you think I didn't buy that goddamn encyclopedia set? So something your generation or those people out there don't know about is that before the internet, there were people that would go door to door selling these encyclopedia sets. They were long, they were like, maybe 20 books or something like that. And one of the things you would do as a kid in certain households, that would be either your punishment, or that would be your tutor, or that would be how your parent would pretend to be annoyed with you when they didn't really know the answer to something you were asking. Like, just look it up. Go look it up. How do you spell that? Go look it up. And, we had this group of encyclopedias, and I can remember having a few different growing up in the encyclopedia. So go ahead, brother. How's your internet? Better? Stable? Who are you? Where are you training out of? Let's get started with that.
Well, my name is Christopher Ward. I'm a personal trainer out of Leaks Fitness as of right now. 2 years ago, I actually joined the fitness world with John. Funny story about that. Always the most hilarious story of how I called up John to work at his gym, Bulldog. So see, I got the merch on. But what else?
How do they get a hold of you? What's your
my Instagram right now? Let me give you guys. Let me back out of the live. My Instagram, how you can get a hold of me is through Instagram or my email. My Instagram is Chris_.Ward. My email is cjw8500@gmail.com. If you go through my Instagram, always just shoot me a DM. If you're inquiring about training, personal training, or any fitness questions that you have, and I'll get back to you at the convenience of time. Right now, I've been training out of Leaks Fitness for about, I want to say 6 months now, coming on to 7. Leaks Fitness is located in Howell and Asbury Park. So if you are in the area, definitely stop by, come by, check out the gym. We have great trainers. We have many different trainers. We do many different things, assessments, corrections, and we are science based. We are going to be. Sorry, I'm having brain farts right now because my dogs are going crazy.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Listen, this is what we'll do. I'm going to make sure I put somewhere in the comments like where Leaks, like your Instagram and all that, so people can find you. The other cool thing is if you're going to be tuning into this, or if you can go into the link in the bio and it'll take you to the YouTube page. You can watch this live. You can see Chris. I'll update the description so that they'll know where Leaks is, because between having people in Jersey and having people in Florida, this way they know Chris is primarily based in New Jersey. So, and it's Leaks, Leaks, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's Chris Ward at Leaks, Leaks, Leaks Fitness. New Jersey, was it Howell and Asbury Park? Howell and Asbury Park. All right, let's get rocking and rolling. You ready? All right.
Let's get to it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. 15 minutes into it. Here, foreplay is over. We're ready to go deep.
Still funny as hell.
Miss me? All right, so here we go. So bear with me. I'm still using this for the first time. So I gave you the background on biometrics, and really what we'd explain this, normally this would be a group of personal trainers, anywhere from a low of, I don't know, maybe 5 to 8, upwards of 20 or 30. And really just tell people that biometrics, bio is life and metrics is, measurement. So we're just really trying to measure the quote unquote life of the client. And those measurables help us sustain our positions as a, person in their life that is their coach and their mentor, and in some cases, let's say a guide, right? So the first thing we talk about is the background of it, the introduction, why we need biometrics. So I got into this a little bit in the pre-part, and I'm going to kind of go through this quickly. It's just that this system was really first started developing in the very late 90s, early 2000s. So it's almost a good 20 years old. And at that time, if you think about it, like you wouldn't even, in the Northeast, you wouldn't even mention the word holistic or all natural. These were like faux pas words. As I said, a lot of this you'll see we're going to pull from someone by the name of Paul Chek and another person by the name of Charles Poliquin. And I believe at that time, Paul Chek was like listed on certain quack watches. All right. Fast forward to now, the same things he teaches. He was just given the Lifetime Achievement Award. I think it was at the Swiss conference, which is a very esteemed health and fitness conference. And I'm trying to go fast, so I might say something incorrectly, but if you look it up, you'll see it. Paul Chek just got the Lifetime Achievement Award. At one point, he was considered like a quack, right, for saying what he said. So this stuff has stood the test of time. And what we figured, me and this guy Brian were like, man, we got to sell this to people that we don't want to get. We want to stay neutral. We don't want to get in between the right, the wrong. Like we know it works. We don't want to get caught up in the words. So we knew there was an apparent need because we were working in gyms in the Northeast, and already by the end of the 90s and early 2000s, there were bigger and bigger and bigger gyms. Powerhouse was huge. Gold's Gym was a huge. And there were more and more and more people joining gyms. But the injury rates, the disease rates, the obesity rates were still going up. So my background as a financial advisor, that brain structure was like frying because we're like, this makes no sense. The only thing that makes sense is that what we're doing in the gym must be counterproductive to health. So we need a better way to quote unquote metric life, right? We need a better way to look at training and coaching people. It's not just about how much weight is pushed how many times. It's not about picking heavy things up and putting them back down. There's got to be something more to it, because if it was so simple, then everyone would be getting healthy at probably alarmingly fast rates at the way people were joining gyms in that time period. So this was a really cool thing that, to give credit, we took from our favorite, most recommended book that we would tell every personal trainer, you should at least buy this when you're getting started. And this is Eat, Move, Be Healthy. And in the, I'd say 80s, 90s, early 2000s, when we were heavy in the gym business, this was very much what the miscommunication was between the medical community and the personal training community. So if you're a trainer out there and you're watching this, you might have even run into this. This was still an issue 20 years ago. You look at the very top left corner, you're looking at a guy who's, obviously is pushing obesity, has postural distortions, doesn't look very good. And just to clear this up to you young people, this is not, can you guys see my cursor? Can you see my cursor, Chris?
No, I can't really see it.
You don't see the cursor? Let me just see. Maybe there's not a cursor.
No.
I think I got to put on the whiteboard.
I'm going to try to join through my computer and join you on live to get more people on the live view.
All right, good. You hit it up and we'll go ahead and do it. Let me just hit a couple waves while you put the live on. Just for everybody joining, if you want, you can go. There's a link in our profile bio that'll bring you to the Rise of the Savage Intellectual podcast YouTube channel, and that's where we're broadcasting live, so you can see Chris's side and you can see all the slides that we're reviewing. All right, so I'll keep pushing. So no, what I tell people is top left corner, that is not in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, what personal trainers looked like when they went to work. However, that is kind of what they did. It was, we literally had to go in the business of other people's gyms and tell people you're not allowed to be on your cell phone while you're training, right? And this is a lot of times what trainers would do, is they would just use weighted based movement as assessments, or let's do a stepping test. It was all some type of stress on the body and a movement. as their beginning assessments. And this happened a lot. As being in the business, we also did sales consulting. So I can tell you there was a tremendous amount of people that would cancel their gym membership, regardless of whether you want to think they were lying or not. But the cancellation request would be, my doctor told me I can't anymore. I hurt back. I have this, I have that. Those clients that I got to speak to and those people that maybe would stay would then say, well, the doctor told me because, I'm on all these medications. That's the very last slide. I can't tell you how many PAR Qs through the 80s and 90s and into the early 2000s that were just littered like you see this one here. All right. So this was why I started seeing a hole in the market that the issue really was, how are we going to take these very expensive courses that are, let's say, between $1,500, $2,000 upwards of $5,000, $6,000 courses that then you got to spend probably another $1,000, $800, $700 to travel, to fly out, get the hotel room and be in that course, right? So how are we going to find a way to get personal trainers who on the average are barely making $30,000 a year, to be able to afford this type of continuing education, because this is what they're dealing with in the gym setting. So again, this is how we started looking at biometrics. So the first thing we started doing with biometrics, was looking at, okay, what are some of the blatantly obvious things about this holistic way of working out? So Chris right now is going through his NASM. There might be a lot of you trainers out here that are NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine. It was for a long time one of the premier, best of the known certifications. Let's say it that way. The OPT, Optimal Performance Model, or Optimal Performance Trainer Model, I think is solid as a beginning step. And although I will say, I've said this before, NASM trainers, in my experience over almost 3 decades in the East Coast, of large health clubs down to studios, NASM trainers, those with NASM certification, are the worst at being able to use their certification as a sales tool when it's one of the best certifications I've seen set up to sell. And NASM doesn't even teach it properly. Again, not to sidetrack, but that's why we saw this need here, because it was like, we need to find a way to also sell this. So the very first step was, what can we look at that's glaringly obvious that kind of makes sense? So this is what we looked at. Your body, let's just look at the human body in general across the lines. Almost all gene, race, gender is 70% water. 80% of the brain is water. 90% of the discs in your back that make up your spine, water. Typically, living organisms are generally made up 70 to 90% of water. Water, I'll try to pronounce that properly. Normal metabolic activity can only occur in cells when they are at least 65% made of water, or hydrated, what we like to say. So what we take from this is that you start having metabolic disruption or stress in cells when they are dehydrated. Makes sense. So we started to realize, like, wow, okay, so a big thing in the holistic world is about water, not drinking Gatorade like so many NFL athletes told us to do, or coaches. That water is really one of the only liquids we should be putting in our body. Because, I mean, if you look at these numbers, you do not have to have a PhD. You don't have to be a dietitian or a nutritionist. And this is not like cherry pick data, right? Like, there's no like gray area here. Like, the science is pretty irrefutable on these numbers. And if we just step back from that, we have to understand the immense amount of importance that water plays in the role of both the human body and within metabolic reactions. Okay. Second thing is the bottom half of this, which is the human body will store their toxins inside of their fat. Your body burns that fat last because your body is a very smart, adaptive survival mechanism. It's how I like to refer to the body. It helps you understand some of these harder processes and complex things about the human body. Also help you dispel some of the myth and bullshit. The body's smart, so it will hold on to fat in the body that has the most amount of toxins in it. When that fat is burned, those toxins are re-released in the body. Please don't get caught in the wording of what's a toxin. Is it toxin? Is it an xenoestrogen? Just these are very generally accepted principles that the body stores toxins in the fat reserves And when the fat reserves are burned, the toxins are out in the body. The little bit deeper of science is this is why I rail against so many holistic practitioners in my world that want to push detoxes and cleanses. What is beautifully taught, we don't get into it here, but beautifully taught by the Poliquin group in Charles Poliquin's biosignature course is P1, P2 pathway. The detoxification of the human body is not as complex as don't eat things, starve yourself at certain hours and everything gets out, or just drink this juice and everything gets out. It's not as simplistic as that, especially if you've been unhealthy longer. All right. So we start looking at, okay, well, the body's pretty smart. Fat's there for a reason. Okay. So what do we start drawing from some of these things is like, okay, well, a lot of us as personal trainers run into the client that has that one area of the body that no matter how much they get into calorie restriction, or no matter how much they diet, or no matter how much they follow their macros from their app, they have this area where they just can't seem to lose that extra fat. And then they'll say, it's my genetics. And let me tell you the mastermind I am without any PhD or lab work. You're going to find this on the back of the hamstrings of women, sometimes on their quads, and on the upper hamstring and on the glutes. You're going to find women that have very nice, tight stomachs, and then they have kind of a little bit of a mess in the glutes and in the hamstring area. Okay. Again, this is beautifully covered both in Check's HLC, Holistic Lifestyle Coach 1, and a lot more in depth in Poliquin Group's biosignature course about why some of those fat storages are there. But what we can recognize as coaches just getting into this and helping our clients is that, okay, this is why losing a lot of fat weight real fast won't be good, because if you're losing a lot of weight at the beginning of an exercise program with a coach, the coach is doing that to you to prove to you that they're good, get results, sell you, and keep you coming back. That's not good. You lose too much weight fast, most like and you've lived a toxic lifestyle. You've had some shitty supplements, shitty foods, McDonald's. That fat reserves are going to stick on the body, and the body's going to bypass it and catabolize probably maybe some muscle or something else, versus wanting to burn that fat. So now we're like, right? So we're starting to understand, wow, okay, there's a lot of bullshit out there. Like, what is really important? We can't, like, supplements and like before you get into supplements and all this shit, like, am I even hydrated properly? How does that work? Then before I start getting into all these supplements and these cleanses and intermittent fasting and it fits my macros, like is my overall diet like toxic, and how long have I been toxic? Like, what's in my body? What's in my fat reserves? And maybe I want to be a little bit smarter as a client, and you can explain this as a coach. Like, the intellectual client will already failed once or twice with other trainers. It's something we teach you in your part Q, is you ask, have you worked with a trainer before? What was one thing you liked, one thing you didn't like? But we ask that question to fish out, okay, have you spent money on a trainer before? You value advice and direction. You just haven't found the right person. Then you're at me because the other ones in the past failed. And why did they fail? They didn't understand these general concepts. They're maybe doing a great job at counting calories. They're maybe doing a great job at getting you at your cardiac threshold. But if they don't understand that, and this is a truth, not to name, I won't name names, but there are companies out there that force personal trainers to have a minimum sales of supplements. And what is one of the easiest supplements to sell people? Pre-workouts. Because they're tired and they're coming in after work. Let's get you in a pre-workout, a ramped up, and a protein, most of that stuff is crap. It's shit. You as a coach need to recognize if your client needs a pre-workout to train, you're missing something as a coach. Again, deeper levels. So let's get back on
that later down.
Yeah. Let's get back on this.
You want to join me on the live too, by the way, to get some views?
Yes, sir. How do I do that?
So
there you are. Got you.
Oh.
Look at you, man. Studying plus monitoring my social media. You're a monster.
I gotta be. I sent it again. Let me just get all viewed. Turn down this. Get more people to view. A lot of people have been interested in like what I'm doing, trying to see like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what do you learn? How do you learn it? And I'll be like, I learned it all from this one guy one day, and he just hasn't stopped teaching me.
You know what? And it's funny because I always felt bad. you came into so much chaos, and I had like 2 other high-level coaches that were supposed to be with me that wind up bailing on me. And did I let you in? I hit it. I'm going to invite you now. Got it? Yeah, and then you walked into so much chaos. I was like, okay, Chris Ward is unable to join, it said.
Let me leave, come back.
Okay.
Let me close out the app.
That's fine. I'll just wait for people. I like this. Wait. Oh. Everybody's staying left.
All right, there we go.
You're on?
And 3, 2, 1. Here I am.
Look at that. That's pretty cool. You know what? I gotta find somebody to help me work through the technology stuff, because I have like all these really nice. Should I mute this one? No, I can't. I have these really nice cameras, and I don't know how to set the cameras up to the laptop so that instead of using the laptop camera, right, like I can film my nice Canon. But let me do this real quick. This way I don't have to do it. Okay. All right. So we'll continue up here. We'll jump back on track. So what we did is we're looking at what are some general big things that we can all agree on, whether we're like super into the science side. I don't care if you're a bodybuilder. I don't care if you're a functional coach. I don't care if you're a holistic guy. I don't care if you're a power lifter girl. This is all pretty standard for the human body. And the other component of this toxin issue, because this is something as a coach, I want you to understand the reason we cover this is that one of the things that affects you getting the results the fastest with your client is their ability to recover. And one of the components of the recovery is their food. So you're going to get a lot of these, like, do I have to eat organic? Should I eat organic? What's GMO? What's gluten? And it's a proverbial minefield, because if you just had this conversation with somebody, we have so many dumb people online right now just regurgitating information that unfortunately is like 30% right with 70% bullshit, right? So it's like, yeah, they're kind of right, but now I got to break this whole thing down for you because you're under this whole misunderstanding. We can just be a lot simpler with people. So as a coach, when you start getting peppered with all these, especially in a situation where you're sitting down with the client, you're trying to sell them, right? Like you got 60 minutes most of the time to have that client to sell them in a session. The one you don't think you want to do is spend 45 minutes trying to educate them on, okay, well, the difference between a gluten sensitivity, a gluten intolerance, and a gluten allergy, right? Like you just don't want to have that. Like, is dairy good for you or not? Well, all right. So these also become sales tools for you to be like, listen, without getting into whether gluten is bad or not, if anything creates a toxic or inflammatory environment, then we know this happens. We're going to have some issues with your skin, because to draw back into this point here is your body's biggest and quickest detox system is your skin. Have you ever had, I always ask this in the class, have you ever had food poisoning before? Right? What's the first thing that happens that triggers the fact you have food poisoning?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah. You're the only one in the class. I don't know if I can ask anybody out loud.
Yeah. What was the question again? I'm sorry, I was lost.
Jesus Christ. All right, cut. So, have you ever had food poisoning?
No, I actually have not had food poisoning, surprisingly.
God bless you. Good job. God bless you. All right, so here's the deal. Food poisoning, when the first thing that'll happen to you, if people remember, it's actually not you throwing them to getting sick. You get really hot and you start sweating. So it's really weird. You're like, I'm really hot. Why am I sweating? Then the nausea kicks in. And it's one of the worst experiences you'll have in your life. God bless. I hope you never have it. But what we want to understand is that even before the body will throw up and expel something, it'll start pushing something through the skin. Or I'll talk to a lot of times when I get my younger trainers that are just out of school or college or something like that. It's like, hey, we've all gone to our intramural sport game of flag football or soccer or softball after we were out at 3 a.m. the night before drinking at the bar, and you can smell who was doing that because they're sweating out the alcohol, right? So the human body, there's a lot of, when you look at, again, we don't cover this, but it's interesting if you want to look this up as a coach and educate yourself. When you look at people that'll complain, this happened to us a lot. I'm embarrassed when I sweat because I get these yellow stains in my white shirts. That has to do with sodium balance. That's all I'll say because I don't want to get off track. And part of the body getting some toxins out of it. So that's something we heard a lot. So we were able to, when other people didn't really have an answer for it, we did, and it came from something like this. All right, last main point of this, that we feel every single person in the industry except Czech coaches, Czech Institute coaches are the only ones that I have found in 3 decades of personal training. I've seen it. I've seen every fucking cert. Second closest maybe is like a Poliquin, but it is the biological fact that your body is that you have 2 branches of what's called your autonomic nervous system. So this is your subconscious nervous control system. So this is what I teach everybody. The simple concept that you need to know about the ANS system is that it controls many of the subconscious things your body does at different spectrums. For example, when you walk into a dark room, what happens to your pupils? They dilate. You don't think about it. It happens automatically. Okay? When you walk into bright light, they decrease. That is an ANS system reaction. What you'll later, it's something I've seen, like I think maybe it's ISSA or somebody maybe about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, could be 10. They started teaching a little bit of circadian rhythm and ANS system in there, but they didn't really know how to assess it or do it. Czech's HLC1 course is really heavy on how to not only assess what and how the ANS, a particular branch of the ANS system is overrun or understimulated, but it also shows you, we're going to get into a little bit of this here, how to stimulate that branch. What everybody in the coaching world focuses on and every certification coach is on is the sympathetic branch. So for instance, again, back to our eye pupils dilating, the dilation opening is a sympathetic reaction. It's a fight or flight relax action. It increases the alertness of the body. It's trying to absorb more light into the eye so that the body can see for danger. Now let's go back to what I said. The body is the most amazing, adaptable survival mechanism. It adapts to survive. It has an optimal way it wants to operate, but it will operate in optimal, creating compensations from muscular patterns to psychological. Okay, this is dissociative identity disorder, PTSD. Tremendous mental trauma will unbalance and therefore create a coping mechanism due to that mental damage. You hurt your left leg, you don't rehab it properly, or what happens more commonly is you do all the rehab to the hurt leg. You do no rehab to the leg that was not injured, although it spent up to 90 days supporting a large majority of the weight of the body. It needs its own type of rehab. Balance, and you don't do that, you will see clients that suddenly then hurt their other leg because they spend all the time rehabbing the hurt one. They ignore the. This is the same thing in program design. You must have a program design for the sympathetic branch and the parasympathetic branch. This is one of the biggest holes we found in the industry, and we really substantiate some value as a coach. Again, throwing it out there, Czech Institute's HLC does a beautiful job of this. If you are an individual and you happen to be watching this, for less than $20, Eat, Move, Be Healthy. How to Eat, Move, Be Healthy by Paul Chek is the book at Amazon. It'll give you your own self-test, and it'll show you your own way to give yourself your own workout for the parasympathetic branch. Now, that's the branch that everyone misses. Going back to our eye analogy. When the eye is open, that is sympathetic. When the pupils dilate, that's parasympathetic. It's blocking out the light. It's like, we're okay, we're good. It's man, I really hope I didn't screw that up. I haven't taught this in a while.
No, you're good. That's why we're
No,
here.
I get him confused. But again, with the parasympathetic system is your rest pupil dilation. What's important that we want to draw from this is the idea that, again, here is some pretty strong evidence that the body is an amazing adaptive survival mechanism. So this means that you as a coach can be doing the wrong things for your client, but if it's just enough of the wrong thing, so it's just enough stimulation, the body will see it as a sympathetic, a catabolic reaction. That's your hard workouts. Anytime your heart rate's elevated, that's when you're playing a sport. It'll see that as a attack on its ability to survive. It'll find a way to adapt the body physiologically or psychologically to that event. And it'll try to make itself stronger. This is why. So this is also where we draw out our philosophy of why we're much more about the recovery of the body versus beating the body up. So if you're a coach out there and you're just got your first certification, all you've really learned, and we're getting into this in a second, is how to destroy the body. And you can never outwork your recovery. That's how injuries happen, and that's how poor performances happen. And that's where we draw this from. So it's very important as a coach that you understand this slide, how important water is to the functioning of every cell in the body. So, coach, do I really need to drink clean water? You tell me. If 70% of your body is water, 80% of your brain is water, 90% of the discs in your body are water, and we know that if a cell is not properly hydrated, it'll decrease the metabolic function of the cell, i.e. creating energy, mitochondria, ATP, whether it's creating new blood cells, whatever that job is, its activity is going to decrease. You tell me, if water seems to be that abundant in the body and there's nothing else more abundant, don't you think maybe we should have really good water put into our body?
Especially, I wanted to start out, like, if you are a coffee drinker in the morning, see, like, we drink coffee. After I'm done drinking my coffee, I make sure I drink at least 1 to 2 bottles of water to rehydrate your body. Because I found out that coffee kind of dehydrates your body, and in a certain way, in some forms. So I try to keep my water intake 2 times more of my coffee intake, because I drink like 2-3 cups a day to get throughout the day, and that's bad. And I know it's bad, so I have to cut back on my coffee. But just with the job that I have right now, trying to stay up is a little difficult.
So here's what I want to do. Before you say any more, I want to leave this to the end, because I guarantee you there's a lot of people that are watching this that are big coffee drinkers, either like me, where I enjoy my coffee, so I want to keep it in my diet, or maybe people like you that are like, hey, I got too much of it. I want to leave this for at the end to like, hey, that's the hook, everybody, to like pay attention to the end of the video. Because I want to go over with you, Chris. I'm going to ask you a few questions, how you're doing your coffee and the timing of your coffee. And then we're going to give out some tips to everybody about how to make it healthier to drink your coffee so you don't have to give it up. Is that cool?
No, that's definitely cool.
And then the other thing is we're going to get into a circadian rhythm slide in a little bit. When we do that, I want to come back to this idea of coffee and give the first hint of how to, let's say, properly use your coffee. Because what we do know, if you look at medical studies, and I hate throwing that term out there, but if you properly read at properly documented medical studies, caffeine and nicotine can be amazing brain stimulants with very little side effects. But it's like anything else. They're both naturally occurring. It's how much is it denatured by the time it gets into the human body? How it is the health status of the human body when the stimulant is taken? And is that stimulant abused? Right? So there's actually healthy ways to use caffeine and even nicotine. I don't have any personal desire for any nicotine, nor do I want to like incorporate that. So I don't educate myself on it. But if you're out there, there is a way to do it. I will walk through the caffeine one, but I fucking love my caffeine. All right. So I think we got this this done here. This is something as coaches you start to need to understand. The other thing here is if you're a coach working with fighters, this is also what's important. Again, remember, I am taking you through one of the original slide decks that hasn't been altered in almost 10 years. So that's also something I wanted to do with this, is to show how strong this information, because this information I was teaching for 10 years was already almost 10 years old when we were putting it together from its influences, right? So you're not talking about 20 years old of information that 20 years ago to 25 years ago might have been quackery. Now is, oh yeah, I heard of that. That makes sense. Because there's a lot of us that were on the fringe of mixing both scientific conditioning and holistic modalities together to get us to a more neutral point versus being dogmatic that everything has to be holistic or a certain version of holistic or everything has to be scientific based, right? So let's go ahead and get to the next slide. Beat that one. I don't remember. So this was another one that was interesting. This was a nice one to wake up the class. Things that make you go, You see music factor, which I love to date myself on. So in the 1900s, the risk of cancer was 1 in 30. 1980s, risk of cancer was 1 in 5. 90s, 1 in 4. By 95, 1 in 3. And we were just hitting the 2000s, like I said, with this. So this was some of this data was taken as projecting into the 2000s, right? So it was interesting. So now we can actually look that it's pretty crazy the rate of cancer at which people are getting it and die. And we're starting to accept the fact now that there's actually been legal lawsuits against groups like Bayer/Monsanto now, and Roundup, which was the main pesticide that had a lot of issues when consumed on foods. So, and we're starting to get into a world where people are a little bit more health conscious on their food. At least they're, even if they're listening to someone who might be stupid, at least they're starting to look at things, more things. But this was something that we had to like tell coaches, like, this is also why, again, the other slide with the water is what, if you're working with MMA fighters, we tell them like, this is why it's important not to not have these massive dehydrations for your weight cut. Again, I'm happy to be corrected if somebody wants to post it and have an educational discussion. But from what I've read up on, you're looking at, when the brain is dehydrated, about a 36-hour rehydration period. So when you're a fighter, you're cutting it pretty close from the time you weigh in to 24 hours into your fight. And everything runs on the fucking brain. Everything, consciously, subconsciously, runs through the brain. That is the one thing you do not want. And what did we show you? Let me go back. Normal metabolic activity can only occur when cells are at least 65%. So if we're looking at that very simplistic concept, the one fucking area of the body that we don't want the cells working suboptimally is the brain. I don't think anyone wants to argue that. I don't think there's a fight coach, jiu-jitsu coach, boxing coach, Greco-Roman coach, Savat, I don't know, whatever. Like, I don't think anyone would argue that you want the brain to be down-regulated in its function during a fight. So that's why we looked at a different way to do the weight cuts based on cortisol and insulin management. The other thing is, this is why we talked to people about why it was worth exploring organic foods, and it was exploring more natural things. And what we said to people were, you want to focus on the quality first of the things you put on your body. Second, the things you put in your body. I'm sorry, I apologize, I screwed that up. You want to focus first on the quality of the things you put in your body. Second, what you put on your body. And third, what you put around your body. And what we do as a society, and what you need to know as a coach, which will hamper the results of your clients, which makes you look like you don't know what you're doing and can lose you re-signs, is the fact that most people in the United States are materialistically driven, that they focus first on what's around their body, their car, their house, their boat, their materialistic possessions. They then focus on what's on their body, their clothes, their jewelry, their lotions, their makeup, their hair products, and then they'll complain about how expensive it is to focus on what they put in their body. And if you can start to understand that concept and you can even just introduce that conversation, that's one of the strongest sales tools you might ever pull out in a sale. Just say that to a client and shut the fuck up. And here's what we used to teach people on the sales portion. If you came in and you told me you just joined up on the super triple A double gold platinum fucking membership, because the sales guys told you on the largest membership, and you're wearing your Lululemons and you're wearing your brand new Nikes and you got your Apple Watch on and your, whatever the next generation earphones are, I know that you are a person. So without shaking up your paradigm and without challenging the ego, which then creates shame and guilt are tremendous psychological motivators for purchasing. Again, getting a little bit off track, we do cover at the end of this. It's gonna be a couple episodes before we get to it. But the psychology of love and fear is the basis of human decision. And we know that human purchase decision is almost 70-80% emotional. So understanding the psychology behind shame, fear, guilt, love, acceptance is what fuels sales. Not to get off, but the one compliment I will give, because I say a lot of negative things about CrossFit, but in their business model, they have one of the most amazing, on the positive side, of this community / inclusion, which is part of a subconscious sale. That is what drove, in my opinion, Jason, their immense rise, because they broke the sale. They broke the record of the fastest growing franchise, right? So one of the things that you want to look at as a coach is start to shake up the paradigm of your client, and they'll close themselves. Because when you say this, one of the things that, Chris, one of the things why my clients currently like to work with me is some people are afraid to say this to them. The most important thing that you need to do is focus on the quality of the things you put in your body, then what you put on your body, and then what you put around your body. And we live in a society where people spend all their money on what they put around them, their house, their car, then what they put on them, their jewelry, their clothes, their makeup. And then they want me to fix what's going on the inside of their body, but they don't want to spend the money on the knowledge or the quality things to put in their body. Do you understand that, Chris? Yeah. And then just shut the fuck up. Then just shut the fuck. See, you're like, yeah, I got you sold. And what's your credit card? But in all seriousness, and again, I'm not trying to be this wolf of the gym floor, but that if you sit it, I'm going to guarantee you 7 out of 10 times at the end of a sale, that's going to, yeah, you know what? I just really need some guys with it. You're right. I got to stop doing that. You will watch the client. Don't look at their clothes. You'll watch the client look at themselves. You're right. I'm one of those people. Let's get started. Okay. So again, I like to throw in a lot of the sales stuff backwards. That's why we want everyone to understand this concept up and down here of these base concepts, the importance of water, how the body deals with toxins and fat, and then understanding that there are 2 branches of the autonomic nervous system that operate all the functions of the body in a balance. So if we understand that, one, water is very important. Hydration is very important. We need to be talking to our clients about water, and not just talking to them about it. You need, as a coach, to be able to effectively understand what might be some of the low-level psychological blockages that they're having and not being able to drink enough water each day. All right. Again, that's something a little bit deeper. I'm going to throw out a plug here. If you have a lot of issues with the compliancy of your clients, you're writing beautiful programs and everything's down to a T, and they're just not being compliant. There's a podcast I did with Jason Oliveira and Jason Olivier, and he has a program called Inner Compass, and I think it's $299, and you can do it as a coach, and he'll work with you through it. I did it. It's extremely helpful. I love personality assessments, but as a coach, he has a course for you, and it kind of goes through what some of those blockages are on a deeper level. But on a base level, whether it's like, hey, let's, if you are one of those high-end gyms, get your client maybe a water jug. buy them a water jug for $15. You know, again, I know that sounds a little crazy, but if you invest in the client, you're investing in them getting the results. You can, for less than $1, get a little sticker that has your scan code to your Venmo so that they can be drinking it wherever they go. And then they can scan it, be like, hey, oh my God, you're looking good, Chris. Oh man, Chris, you look jacked. You look good. Yeah, man, it's my coach. Scan him, hit him up. Like he bought me this. Make sure I'm drinking my water. You know, he said over 80% of my brain is what you'll see. You'll know you did your job. Your clients are walking billboard for you, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, I don't want to get off track, but if anybody wants to DM me or get a hold of us, I'll explain this concept to you. This is something that we won't. Again, we're not going to get into this for like probably a few weeks, but this is the business sales side of things. All right, so I'm not going to really touch this as much. If you're watching this and you're still with us, what's up, Cedar? And hey, this is crazy. I always forget that these people are there. All two of them.
I believe that is.
Yeah, that's yours. None of my people in my crowd are paying attention to me on a Sunday. That's why I'm here with you.
Let's firstly explain. So what is currently happening is if you could go back to the slides, we're just doing a live stream of your body. What is your body mainly made up of? How important water is, the metabolic system of your body, the two branches of A and S of the body, subconscious nervous control system. Terribly sorry about that. And how your body stores fat and toxins. And we're going through even business plans of how to sell yourself to clients. What is a good proper way of showing up as a coach and showing up as you can help your clients even further. So that is what we're currently going over. If anybody's still in the live, just to recap, any new joiners as well.
Yeah, everybody, I'm taking Chris through our Biometrics education platform, which covers both the biological education component of being a coach, especially if you're in a big box format gym and you're not and you have a base level certification like ISSA or NASM or ACE or AAAI. I have AAAI. I did a lot of work with them in New Jersey. And again, like I said, there's great entry levels to the business, but we're going to go over some things that are a little bit more complex that'll help you immediately apply in both the program design section and sales. So I'm going to throw some business stuff out there as well to help you guys. At the end of the day, you know, like I said, we said at the beginning, the more you learn, the more you should be able to earn. Okay. So it also, the other thing too, that I like doing it this way is that I don't mind if there are people watching this that aren't coaches. Like it's really made for coaches, but I don't mind people who aren't coaches because there's nothing in here. Like there's certain components of other gym systems that I've recently seen that they don't want you to tell the public about. You know, not that they're doing anybody wrong, but they're like, oh, this is like a psychological thing. If you get them to keep thinking about the future and how they look at the future, then they're going to say yes to the plan because you'll be able to overcome the objection. So one of the biggest growing fitness chains, I'm not going to say where because maybe it'd be easy to figure out, but their education system's like just shit. It's still like 10 years behind this system that's 20 years old. Like, and everything is just focused on like this, like get past the objection. That's so backwards. With the FIA system and what you're seeing here, I'm taking Chris through, is a way, and this is why I don't mind clients seeing it, is it's a way to not have any objections from a client at all. It's a way to filter out who are the best clients to work for you based upon who's aligned with you in their timing of their journey in health. There are people that it's okay. This is the thing that gym owners I just drive gym owners crazy with this because I teach trainers this. It's okay to take a no from a client. There are objections that it's okay to let go of. There's countless of business videos out there that talk about the fact that one of the most annoying clients in every industry across the board is the ones that ask for discounts. The clients that come in and just be like, listen to your pitch, listen to what you do, pay your full rate, let's go. They never bother you at anywhere near the level. that the clients are like, well, is there anything you could do about this, Chris? We could knock a couple bucks off. Or what if I bring a couple friends? Because here's the initial psychological unit. If they're doing that back and forth with you to get a deal, they do that with themselves in their life, and they're going to do that throughout the sessions with, man, I followed it all week with Chris. I just posted a funny meme about this with Elmo, where it's like, sometimes I give a client like, hey man, great job on your diet. And then the fucking next thing I know, I see them like hanging out like crazy. It's like, right. It's like, okay, we got to do some work. Why were you so stressed that once I gave you a compliment, you thought that was time to break all the rules? But so the one thing we want you to get out of this too is like, there's no hidden magic here. We're not trying to trick people into like dealing with the objections. We're trying to make sure that there's zero objections, because there's nobody that can argue with what we're going to teach you as a coach to explain to a client. The really only thing they can say to you, and it's a true objection, and if you do what we teach you through this series, their only objection is I don't have the money. And there are people that just don't have the money. They just literally, I understand that. Even at a deep personal level, there are just the times when there's something you need and it can be good for you, but either A, you don't have the credit cards, B, you don't have the cash, or C, you have too many financial responsibilities at this point to do that. Spend $1,600, $1,800, $2,500 on 30 sessions, right? So I'm going to skip over this one. I think this is a little bit more interesting. I use this in group discussions when I have a large group of trainers that I can get the group talking to each other, right? And understand that what I really get groups to understand about this, those of you that are watching, is that some of the same things that are wrong with our health system, when people are like, our health system's broken, fucking same things wrong with our fitness system. The way commercial gyms are set up now, the way social media fitness influencers are set up, supplement companies are set up, the government set up. The same thing that's wrong and broken with our health system is the same thing that's broken and wrong with our fitness system. So let's go through it. So let's say here, if you're watching, is a good point to pause and break. We're going to keep barreling through. I think we're going to do maybe, how are you, Chris, to do like another maybe 30 minutes?
Oh, what time is it? I did have to go by like 1, but okay. we can get through till 1. You want to take a break?
Yeah, you're at 1. If you need to take a break or jump, go ahead. I'm just going to, for audience sake and recording sake, I'm just going to barrel through, and for everybody knows that 1/3, which would be, it's probably, because we did some talking and stuff before we start recording, but we'll probably go another 20, 30 minutes. But if anybody needs to take a pause right now, this is the time to do it, and then click back in. Chris, if you need to jump off, we need to jump off. I'm going to power through, and then, of course, it'll be up for you later. We'll go over it.
All I got to do is just use the bathroom real quick.
Yeah. The one thing, remember for me, is when you do, when it's time for you to go, you got to leave your screen on until I shut off so I can get the recording.
Okay.
All right, but go ahead. Take your break. I'm going to barrel through this real quick.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to go to a different. Okay, so here's something I'll talk about a little bit. This is also something that was really taught to me at base level Paul Check, HLC. And this was something where I said earlier that the NASM educated trainers should be like sniper assassins with selling based using their OPT model. If you're not assessing, you are guessing. So when you see a lot of these online coaches that are like, hey, buy my program, this is very prevalent with bodybuilders. It's why they're like very much a trigger for me. Every like figure competitor bodybuilder person, they have these like preset, pre-written programs. Renaissance periodization is one of the most popular ones. There's a lot of good things about RP and the guy, Dr. Mike Israetel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. And there's a lot of shitty things I don't like about it. But again, I've always said this, there's got to be some type of assessment up front with the client as a coach. It's not a good thing to just give people a pre-written program. Now, does that mean that you will at times? Absolutely. I give a lot of people pre-written programs. When I give people pre-written programs, here's the disclaimer. They're typically very similarly generated as the programs were that conceptually of what you saw in the concept of water, the skin and the ANS system is that, okay, I know that no matter who you are, no matter what your injury is, you're going to want to do some breathing exercises and do some diaphragmatic breathing. I know I eventually want to teach you how to be able to do a one-legged squat. A great side reference of something you might want to educate yourself on, coaches out there, are things that are called the primal movement patterns. I believe also Paul Chuck might have been one of the very first coaches to really start doing this and making personal trainers, strength coaches, study locomotion of the body and posture of the body. So you need to have a starting point of where you're designing your exercise program for clients. But that's where the assessment comes in. Now, we're going to get into also why a large majority of the assessments that gyms are using out there are garbage. And I know that you guys out there as coaches, a lot of you are forced to have to use their proven track system that a lot of these commercial gyms are giving you. I know it. I did it. I did 4 to 6 weeks again with that same name provider. I can tell you right now, I did not miss a single sale. I had people that were unemployed with no job and very low income jobs with no disposable income that were purchasing personal training with me because I didn't do their system. I did mine, which is based upon this. And I created enough of a value. And they were also, again, we'll get into the holistic side of things. When I coach, there's a certain energy I have. I get people that have problems. It's something I like in coaching. Like a lot of the fighters I would get, like almost every fighter I got when I went into the world of fighting, and Chris, I'm going to bring him back on in a second, was flat-footed. I remember when I opened Bulldog, I don't think I ever trained like a flat-footed person, and I was training a lot of football players. And I learned about flat foot training and unilateral from Mike Boyle, which is an OG of strength coach and training, big field hockey and hockey coach up in Boston. But that was something that's a huge issue for fighters trying to create power and keeping themselves from having ankle and knee issues. So when you're a coach, one of the things that you really need to do is to be able to have at least some type of base level assessment to get you started. Also, explaining your assessment to the client is part of what the sales process should be. I like to say that when you work with FIA and you go through our biometrics, we make you a personal training, personal fitness, personal performance consultant. So whatever you want to put in front is fine, but you're not sales, you're a consultant. Because this is what you're doing. You're consulting them. And this is something I got from working with large, big banks, is that I'm not going to trick anybody with a shit ton of money who's smart and has all that money into giving me their investment accounts. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do an analysis, and if I can prove that there's enough value in the way that I approach things, I'm going to get the business. If not, I am still going to conduct myself in such a professional manner that I'm still going to get John, I was very impressed by this presentation. This was great. Unfortunately, this is not the right time for us, but I'd like to stay in touch with you. That is an okay thing to happen. When you're in this gym commercial world or studio world, it's like they put this in your head that that can never happen. Or if that happens, there's something you did wrong. Incorrect. So I want to get trainers, get that out of your head, take that pressure off you. The way you can take that off yourselves, and going back to how did I bypass this really big growing chains, supposedly great system? How did I do it my way and have way better results? Is because I start with an assessment and explain to my client in a very honest way what the assessment is and what the assessment's doing, what I'm drawing from the assessment. It shows empathy to the client. And it's a double whammy. You're both learning on where to start the design of your exercise program, and you're showing the client empathy. I give a fuck. I don't care about how ripped I am. I don't care about how many clicks you can get me on my social media post. I don't care about how quickly can I take a picture of you to post to get more clients. I care about you and what you're doing during that time you're here with me. And because I care so much, this whole first hour, maybe hour and a half, maybe the full first, I tell people usually the first 4 to 5 sessions you're with me are really still all assessments. You know, and higher level coaches up there, higher than me, my level and higher, will tell you that it's really like you really need hours with somebody to assess them, right? But because of the commercial gym mentality of uneducated sales practices and client retention practices, we think everything's got to be this super fast, got to sell them, got to close them. And we don't understand the idea that, okay, take a little bit of extra time up front, and you're going to get a lot more in the end. And I don't mean the end in a year. I mean a little more up front. Don't be afraid to close them the first day. Let them fucking cook for a week, maybe 2. And I'm going to guarantee you'll close about 80% of the people if you give them that space. Again, I'll explain that later. For this, how the hell do you know what you're doing if you're not assessing the client? All right. So let's skip forward. Something that I talk to people about, and I kind of covered this a little bit as I was talking before, so I'll be quick. What's a personal trainer? I get this a lot when I go into a gym. Well, I'm a yoga instructor. I'm a Pilates instructor. I'm group fitness. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a personal coach. I'm a lifestyle consultant. I'm a strength coach. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm a dietitian. I'm a nutritionist. The list is absurd. Dietitian is the only protected designation in all of those names. So they're the only ones that really have the weight of some type of formalized education that must be approved by a formalized board. And I'm really not big on dietitians. In the sports performance and everyday coaching world, dietitians are great for what they're educated in, which is more of the sick disease world, working in concert with a doctor in a hospital. So what I really get to this is another big discussion that I get a lot of the coaches in the group, because they're usually working. It's like, what is your job? Let's get to what your passion is. Like, why do you want to be a trainer? Are you here? This is something that was very prevalent when I was teaching in the gym structure commercially in the 90s, was there was a lot of part-timers. There was a lot of part-time moms, because being a personal trainer allowed you to get into shape, just having their first or second baby. You had the free daycare. So, and for the most part, it should be, working in a gym is a fun job, you know? So there's really this, I remember in my experience, don't slaughter me. I'm happy to hear what your experience was in comments, but in my experience in the Northeast through the 80s and the 90s, it went from being a lot of like macho guys that were almost bodybuilders, jack trainers, and then skinnier, more feminine guys that were aerobics teachers that then dueled out as personal trainers. Those are your 2 classes of personal trainer. There wasn't a ton of sports performance trainers. There was one that we really knew of. And it was this guy called Bill Parisi in New Jersey, who I think is still Parisi's speed school, or I think they're still there. But there's really only him and I think Joe DeFranco. There's like the only 2, right? Now there's a speed strength conditioning box. All the CrossFit people who left being CrossFitters didn't realize how bad it was, and now they're just strength conditioning, whatever. But somewhere in that time period, it switched over to being a lot of female, highly female dominant in the personal training field. Anyway, I highly digressed there when I wanted to skip quickly. Let's go. All right. So here's something that I say to trainers, and I want to pull this out. Let me change the way that this looks. All right. So, this is something that I do on interviews, and I teach gym owners and personal training directors to ask on the interview. So we have a very psychologically based interview format that we use in our structure to identify people that fit well for our system of having a career as a personal trainer versus a job. Name me the last 5 books you read. And in today's world, it's even more prevalent. Not the last 5 articles, not the last 5 posts by your favorite influencer, not your favorite influencer posting something from PubMed that he or she cherry-picked to prove their bullshit point. Book. Bona fide, solid books you read. Nowadays, I'll take audiobooks. Give me an audiobook at least. What are you doing? As a manager, if you find someone who can quickly blurt out 5 books they're currently reading, I don't even care if they're all fantasy books and have really not much to do with their field. If they're just books, you've identified somebody who values learning, and they're going to fit into this system really well. And they're going to be career-minded trainers that are going to educate themselves and make more money, and educate themselves and make more money as long as you provide a good environment for them. Coaches, that's where you want to get at. You want to be dominant in your field. Look at point 3. This is by Earl Nightingale. This is the statistical representation of the data that he accumulated. If a person spends 1 hour a day on the same subject for 5 years, that person will be an expert in that subject. So think about it right now, young coaches. All of you have some type of digital device. We're live right now. Anybody that, and this is for anybody in any field. If you have something you want to get really good at, take out your, I know how to do it on an iPhone. I'm fucking old. Somebody else will explain it later on an Android. But on an iPhone, take out your iPhone, put in, schedule an appointment with yourself for 1 hour a day, whether it's you stay up a little bit later or you a little bit earlier, or 1 hour during your work lunch break. Make an appointment in your phone right now for 1 hour a day and put it reoccurring for 5 years, or just reoccurring, nonstop. You can do that with the iPhone, your scheduler, and then stick to that. I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably the number one thing that every coach that Brian and I came in contact with over a decade in all the different states, it's the differentiator that made a trainer that would be a low producer, not selling a lot of packages, somebody the owner wants us to fire. And within months, not 5 years, within months, that trainer would be kicking everyone's ass, being at the highest level, making the most money, because they would stick to that last point you saw. And that is something that my partner, Brian, who was beautifully disciplined at. It is also, I will be very open to everybody, one of my weaknesses. So take it from either extreme. It's something that I try to do. It's part of the reason why I get up at 4:30 in the morning, is so that I can find myself at least 30 to 45 minutes that are just for me to focus on. The last 4 weeks for me, it's been learning social media, learning StreamYard, I think is what I'm using now, learning Opus Clips, learning CapCut, studying other social media, which is funny because it's kind of a hell for me. The saying, the place you want to look the least is where, you'll find your success or your change. And I just really dislike social media. I dislike all this this I miss being able to just drive in, click up my fucking PowerPoint and go to talking. But it's interesting, right? This will somehow make me better. And I've gotten already tremendously better in 4 to 5 weeks. So again, it doesn't have to be 5 years, but if you're a coach and you're watching this, you want to take an actual item to make yourself a better coach, just 1 hour, and name what that hour is going to be. Deep longitudinal system. I'm going to study this guy, Paul Chek. 1 hour a day for the next 4 weeks. I'm going to listen to Paul Chek. Might be a little deep for some of you coaches right now, but Paul Chek, or I'll throw out there Mike
Andrew
Boyle.
Huberman. Been studying him for about the past couple of weeks. Learned a lot.
Yeah, I got some bones to pick with Huberman.
Ooh, you don't like? You got
I'm
bones
going to
to
go
pick?
after a neuroscientist, but no, you know what it is, man. I'll go off on a horrible tangent, but it's this. I've covered it in some of my other podcasts. I don't think he did it. I don't think he did it purposely, but I think he inadvertent. I think where he had a case to expose this guy David Goggins for being what I think he truly is, which isn't something horrible. Just he's not he's not somebody anybody should be listening to for their health or fitness. That's unfortunately the truth. He's deeply mentally damaged and has a lot of trauma that he is working through by having this persona that's unstoppable, that he says is not a persona. And he talks about dropping these masks. But anybody who's worked with a lot of deep psychological issues, either internally with themselves or externally with clients, you can see that this whole burn the boats, that's a mask. It's so deeply fucking rooted that he thinks it's who he is. But again, that's a whole nother side tangent. But Uberman went on that podcast, and you probably saw it, where he's like, oh, he pretty much used a correlation to make it, to me, sound as if he was saying, yeah, you need to do what David Goggins is doing. And he talks about how the ganglion, now I'm forgetting the part of the brain, but anyway, there's a part of your brain that enables you to be able to do difficult things. When you talk to somebody who can just get through difficult things nonstop, you have somebody who's always breaking down and having issues, let's say. And part of that is that the more difficult it is something that you do, it's like a muscle. Like the more difficult the exercise, the more program you do, the muscle gets stronger. The response to doing difficult things becomes stronger. So he was like, you every day, David Goggins, you spending your whole day finding the hardest thing for you to do. It's like you're exponentially growing that part of your brain. So that's why you have to keep doing harder things. And B, that's why you're so good at it. So there's some neurological, scientific, neuroscience backing up this crazy idea of you doing these super hard things all the time is good. And I was like, I don't think that's really how this should have been presented. And again, Uberman's not teaching a class at Stanford on his podcast. So it's like, I don't want to be one of those guys who's like overcritical, because I think he's got an awesome podcast. Like I tell people listen to it. I listen to it, right? He's the one where I tell people, like, don't get all crazy about cold plunge therapy. Listen to his podcast on it, because there's a certain way to do it. You need the, I think it's the shiver mechanism, the shiver effect, right? So anyway, coaches out there, if you know, obviously, if you see Chris and I going off on a tangent, obviously we've read a lot more than 5 books, but you know, this is something that's important. If it is reading a book that you haven't gotten through, or it's a book you want to read, or what I would suggest is, here's what I would suggest to every coach out there right now, 100%. Do what I just told you to do with your book, look at me, I'm like, this is right. This is how old I am. Like I still have my written daily planner. So that's why you're writing your book. But if you're using your digital planner, put in there a meeting with yourself every single day, 7 days a week for the next year, just 1 year. And give yourself a 1 hour appointment. And in there, I'll give you a suggestion, at least for the first month. 1 hour, read 1 hour out of the book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I don't care what level of a coach you're at. I don't care if you got a CSCS. I don't care if you've got a master's in fuckology. I don't know, whatever, exercise science. I don't know what they're calling it today, or exercise physiology or kinesiology. I don't care what it is. Even if you have one of those, even more so, right? It's less than, I think it's $15 on Amazon. And schedule 1 hour a day with yourself to read that book. It'll change the complete way you're coaching. And if you pair that book up to this course, at the end of this course, you'll be one of the most masterful salespeople. I tell this to people all the time. How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek.
Yeah, I remember reading it for a little bit
Yeah,
at the gym.
Yep, I had 2 copies. So for those of you who don't know, when I had taken over and run Bulldog, I had 2 big bookcases that we started filling with books. Because that was another thing I did when I took over gyms and managed, that goes along with this system, is I create a library in every one of my offices. There it is. Yep. So if people can see it, that's it.
So
how much is it?
Right now for paperback, it's $47. I'm actually surprised by that.
That's because I'm telling you right now, if it's $47, guys, it's because I believe it's his 25th or 35th year anniversary this year. So there are people that'll spend $47 to get the original edition. So don't do that. If you put How to Eat, Move, Be Healthy by Paul Chek, it should not be more. I just gave it to somebody on a call, and I think he said it was
okay. As I scrolled further down, there's one for $27, and I believe what edition is this? 3rd edition.
Yeah, that's still too much for $27. There should be a 2nd edition or 3rd edition for under $20. So again, just keep looking on Amazon. You'll find it in there, because I just found it with another client. But take that book, and it pairs up real nicely to this. And if you're a NASM coach and you know the OPT model and testing model, this pairs up really nice with that to teach you. And that was the other thing when we developed this course. Why was there a need for biometrics? Every damn gym we were going into, 75% of the staff were certified by NASM, and none of them were designing programs by NASM. Like if NASM could hear this, National Academy of Sports Medicine, I don't know what's going on with your certification. It's actually very intelligent, but however you're teaching it, your coaches suck at programming, designing, and selling the program design to people. At least on the East Coast.
I can piggyback off of that. The reason why I feel like NASM gives you all the course material and you have to read it. It's not somebody actually educating you on these systems, how to program and do it. You're basically your own teacher, and you're teaching yourself into something that you do not understand. That is my one complaint about NASM, is that NASM needs to actually have people who have done it for years, teaching courses. They need to get on online courses.
They do. I think that should be.
I have not found any of them.
Really?
I like to say I'm in my toddler years for coaching.
Yeah.
Being into it, I had to self-educate myself on mainly 60% of the knowledge that I had. And a lot more of it comes from you, just from literally teaching me these courses, seminars, and teaching me. But when I got into the meat and potatoes of it, and when I was diving deeper into NASM, it was the hardest thing to do because I have a learning disability. It was hard for me to pick up most of these things.
Yeah, NASM and a lot. That's my other complaint. Like they give you almost like you would think this is a positive thing. It's just unnecessary. They give you like a fucking college level like physiology, biology type of course. Like you really don't need to learn all the muscles in the body or all the bones. Here's the thing I've tried to tell every trainer and coach, because I'm intelligent. I test well. Biology comes somewhat easy to me as a science. But even I am frustrated at what I felt when I went to go get my recertifications, like testing me on shit that for the last 2 years as a coach, I never even looked at or touched. Like, that's why when people are like, why'd you either A, not take this certification test, or why did you not renew? Like, I get that a lot. Like, I have a list of fucking certifications. I have like 24. And very, very rarely did any of them I renew because I knew the business end of it. Like, there wasn't anything new you were teaching me, one. Two, once you taught me the course and I got the basic foundations of it down, I also know where all the material came from. That like, there's nothing patentable or copyrightable what you're teaching. Listen, that's the biggest issue legally about the whole supplement industry, about having natural and really natural based supplements. And that's the conspiracy argument against pharmaceuticals, is that you can't patent or copyright, vitamin A or D. You've got to like alter it to create a patent in order to control it. Right? Like that's the whole argument in the holistic world with GMO seeds and normal seeds. You can have these patents on the seed structures. So, so unless it was a really crazy course like Check or Poliquin, where you actually went there for over a week, minimum of a week, and you listened to the main fucking guy lecture. And then you were, like you said, these other high level coaches, then you were learning while you were doing it. So like we'd be sitting in the, so anyway, not to get off the topic, but, let me stop there. There's so much more I want to cover, but I don't really want to go over time because I don't think people need to hear it. But anyway, that's where NASM and them kind of screw up, and a lot of other people do a better job. But anyway, that was our need for it. So let's go on to the next slide. That was kind of going through the schedule. So here's what I want to end with, because here are some things that you use if you're a trainer in the gym. All right. So Biometrics level 1 was designed if you're a personal trainer and you're working inside of a gym. This was taught to have you just crush your competition, both inside of the gym with you and outside. Here are some of the things that we also recognize as we went around to a lot of gyms that people would make mistakes. So one of the things I would do is I would speak with the gym owner. And then before I would decide to contract with the gym owner, I would shop them, meaning I would come in, fill out a guest pass, go through the whole process of a guest pass, sales script, go through a PT session, work out there for a week or two, come in at 5 a.m., come in at 12, come in at 5 p.m., come in at 9. I mean, I'd come there at 2 in the morning. If I've had 1 or 2 gyms that were 24 hours, I would just pop in at 2 in the morning. So I'd spend about a good week shopping. And then I would sit down with the owner and I would say, okay, here's all the issues. So part of that was also for us to compile part of this data, which is what is the prevalent problem we're seeing going on. So for your trainers out here, here's what we'll wrap up on. This was something that we would test the trainers on. That's how important we believe this was. And this is what we call our philosophies. And this, just like the concept of how important the skin is, how important water is, what TER is, how important your parasympathetic, sympathetic branch is, these philosophies are just important because they're kind of universals that help you regulate your business. Training is an observational science. Okay, the more people you train, the more workouts you perform, the more experience you gain. That's what makes you really a better trainer. Okay, you have to study it, you have to apply it. You have to then go back and research it, adapt it, apply it, go back. If you're not into being a mini detective or a mini scientist as a personal trainer or strength coach, this is the wrong job for you. because this is how you get good real fast. So this is kind of what happened with you, Chris, where it's kind of throwing you by the fire, but you were learning better training program techniques, even though unfortunately you didn't know why they were better or why they worked, but you were learning them to put into program design. But, oh, that guy did this, give him that exercise, because you were observing and you were able to see the patterns and you were able to put them in place. You very quickly were the guy, just so people are watching, that when Chris started first working with me, he was the guy where every fighter and client was like, don't put me with him. He's the new guy. To within less than maybe 4 or 5, definitely less than 6 weeks, they were like, yeah, I'll work with Chris today. Hey, I'll work with Chris again today. Like, that's how quick. Chris was the guy. Trainers would walk into, he worked into a more of a privately owned strength and conditioning gym, set up more to look like your CrossFit boxes, turf inside, all powerlifting, lifting. Go fuck yourself with your Nautilus, no Nautilus, dumbbells, kettlebells, medicine balls. We trained athletes, combat athletes, and therapy. Every day, I remember Chris would walk in and he'd put everything away. He'd clean up the gym. That was something that was one of the big green flag identifiers for me as a manager or owner of a gym. When I hire a newbie, I would never tell them you've got to clean when you come in. And then Chris started realizing, oh, every time I come in on Tuesday, client X comes in at that time, and John needs 5 medicine balls, 6 hurdles, and he would start to set up the stations for me. And whether he knew it or not, and whether I knew it or not, Chris was practicing an observational science of, okay, I don't know why, but this client needs to do the box. All right, I don't know. I know that he has this dysfunction, so he needs to do box training, and he does it every 5 p.m. with John. So I know that's what I do it. And he started learning those things. All right. So it's not just with the client in the session, but it's also with, I always, and I tell people this, like when you go to interview at a gym, like who are the best selling trainers? And we'll get to later what selling means, but go and ask them, like, can I shadow? If I buy you a cup of coffee or a protein shake, can I shadow you for a couple sessions? Let me see how you do it. Observe them and how they conduct their business. All right. Also, this is important of why you need to have assessments and why you need to track your sessions. There's nothing for you to fucking observe if you're not tracking it. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care where you are in the training profession. You're at some point in time, you're going to have to go like 60, 70 fucking hours a week, like a monster, to get your 30, 40 hours a week of clients. It's still something that very few, again, I believe we found a way to solve it with our sales system mixed with this system, whole nother series. But for the most part, you've got to go into a gym and load up your schedule book, and the average trainer closes at like a 20, 30% rate. So that means if you want, if one client sees you twice a week and you want to work 5 days a week, 40 hours, you need 20 clients. And that means if you're closing at a 20% rate, do the math. I think like 400 people you need to get to 20% to get to 20 clients. It's like 400 sessions to get to 20 clients. Check my math on that. But it's horrible. And the way everybody approaches it is just gut it out. One of the ways you as a coach is using some of these things, such as tracking your workouts, tracking other trainers. Here's the other thing that happens. Point 2, training someone is a live commercial. Every time you're in the gym and you're seeing with your clipboard and you're tracking and you're doing this, and boom, boom, boom. And the client sees that. Wow, man, Chris is really into his client, and stops them, takes their shoes off, and then does this, and then they'll hear the client. Oh, that feels so much better. Oh, Chris, I'm feeling better today. Like, that's a fucking commercial. One of the things we teach in this class, that when you're in a gym, if let's say I'm in a gym and I want to train women that are 55 and up, that is a hard demographic to approach in the gym if you're a 30 or under young man. Could be intimidating because you might, especially if you're in the Northeast, because they don't want to be bothered with you. What is some young, good-looking boy going to tell me at 55, premenopausal, to tell me about my life with 3 kids? Been there, gotten all the objections. And again, what are you going to tell them about life? None of that shit. But you're going to tell them about this stuff we just went over in the other slides. Yeah, water is that important. You know, some of the reasons you're getting those migraines isn't the fact your kid's yelling all the time. It's you're dehydrated at a cellular level. You see, cells don't really operate well if they're like 65% hydrated. It starts just causing chaos in the body. You know, and I see you working out here every day. I mean, it's like you're killing it. But I just kind of feel bad because you're only training half your body. What are you talking about, Chris? I train my upper body, my lower body. No, I don't mean you're training the outside of the body. You're not training the inside of the body. You're not doing anything for the parasympathetic nervous branch, which really controls where all your results come from. Next thing you know, Chris, wow. That fucking trumps. Hey, come on, Chris, listen, man, we got to get you in here today. We got to get, Chris, can you visualize what you're going to, Chris, tell me what it's going to be like when you've got those great arms and that six pack. I mean, tell me how you're going to get the fuck. I just hate that mindless bullshit psychology. Like, I'd rather be real with someone. Training someone.
Surface level.
Very surface level. I haven't seen a PT sales system yet that's not surface level. So again, training someone is a live commercial. I would tell people I want to train women 55 above or older. I know they have disposable income. Maybe I've been studying premenopausal nutrition on the side. That's part of my 1 hour per day. I understand the parasympathetic nervous branch needs to be stimulated way more than the sympathetic branch for people above 35. So man, I have knowledge that no one else, not only in this gym, but no one else in this area has. So how can I not be salesy and approach that woman? Well, if I have a client who's already in the demographic, I am going to fucking train them right next to the target client. Why? Because training someone's a live commercial. Why? Because what I just said, my client's going to give me some type of compliment back and it's going to get overheard. I'm telling you right now, there's never, not once has there ever been a gym that I've gone into and I've taught this concept where the trainers who've done it and not immediately do we start getting people walking up to the front desk saying, who's that trainer over there? Who's that? Oh, is that John? Can I get a session with him? I was listening to him talk to that client. I'd like to have a session with him every damn time. I'm telling you right now, one of the other things we teach in this course, we did with amazing success when we teamed up with Whole Foods in the Dr. Phillips area of Orlando, was I would make trainers go into a grocery store to pull clients, because you can just look at what are the controversial topics. They're almost still today. Like, should you be drinking dairy or not? And if you do drink dairy, should it be whole milk? Is fat-free milk really better for you? Like, you can actually go into a Whole Foods and you'll see the new person who's gotten onto their health food kick because they're stuck in front of the fucking dairy section like this. What's kefir? Kefir says probiotic, Greek yogurt, regular yogurt, right? And you could just like, and one of my favorite things is reach by them and grab the whole milk. Hey, can I help you with one of those? I do nutritional work. I don't say I'm a nutritionist or a dietitian. I don't get into the fucking linguistics of this bullshit. I just say I do nutritional work with my clients. A lot of my clients tell me that they get a little overwhelmed here. It's not salesy, that's the truth. And then when you're having that conversation, if you pick the right time at the Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, or I'm trying to think of like the very health focused shopping stores, if you do that, you're good. Someone else at the busy time is going to hear you. And the next thing that most often happens is someone at the thing will lean over and give their 2 cents. Again, sometimes it's not nice. I've had people lean over and be like, listen, I'm a doctor and this whole milk is bullshit, fat. Like you'll get a couple of those people, but you start to actually have conversations as a consultant versus sale. The opposite is very important on the training someone as a live commercial, is that this was prevalent in gyms. Trainers that didn't know how to prospect properly, that were crossing their hands, sitting down. They just had this, in Jersey, it was the prevalent RBF, resting bitch face. Like guys had it, girls had it, everyone had it. When you are exerting that energy, if I'm not even getting into the metaphysical of the, hey man, you got to put out positive vibes, you got the 432 megahertz. It's like, no, like, listen, human psychology, for danger and alertness, we judge people by their appearance and what type of quote unquote vibe they're getting off. We subconsciously and consciously judge them. If I am somebody who's not enjoying my workouts and I am someone who's not getting results, it's a hit or miss if I want a fucking cheerleader. It's a hit or miss if I want to come in and see the guy that's with the super tight shirt and all right, no, oh my God, great job, Mary. Oh my God, now Mary, we're gonna go over here, Mary. Oh my God, your glutes look great, Mary. Like that's hit or miss. There are certain personalities that are gonna want that, need that. But if you want to be like 100% accurate almost, all the time, then what you focus on is this look calm, serene, and engaged. Because the people that come in the gym that are confused and not getting results, the base level that they're dealing with is fear. And if you can give them the professional appearance that there's no fear with you, that there's comfort, there's calmness, with that comes the answers. You're going to be way more approachable. So think about this. Training is an observational science. So you want to be tracking all your workouts. That also duels into the commercial concept that people are going to see, especially if you're in a gym where all the other trainers, I can't tell you how this is also what works. I don't come in. I used to come in and mandate everybody have a clipboard. Then I came in and said, you know what? Let's see who's going to pick this system up. And you watch the people that get the clipboards and start tracking everything, just start boom, 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 boom. Not only do they start outselling, my favorite fucking thing that happens is when you have clients. I know this sounds so dark, but it's part of my joy. You get clients that are with the really good looking jack trainer who's always at the top of the sales because he looks good, but he looks good, but his clients never change. I mean, please stop me if you've heard this one before. It's all the time. And then you get the trainer that was never really selling much, but really nice and sweet and study and knows their books. In this system, you start seeing them, not only see them surpass them in sales, the clients start getting results. And what happens is they siphon the clients off from the shitty trainers. And when that happens, the shitty trainers fall in line real fast because it affects their checkbook. So when you're coming in, you're paying top dollar and your trainer looks good and you're blurting all of your problems out to them, but you're seeing all the other clients around you get in better shape while you're not, you're going to start listening a little bit more. That's the commercial. So, and then what are you doing? What are you tracking? What are you writing down? And what will happen is that client will go to your client and say, what are they doing? Why is Chris always taking notes during your session? And that's where you want to get at the level of sales. And we're going to kind of wrap this up with these last few points, which is if training is an observational science, both for you as the scientist detective and for the people out there shopping. And then our next step is that, well, training someone is a live commercial. Whenever you're working with someone, it's a live commercial. You don't want to just be counting reps while they're on a machine with your hand crossed. You want to be fully engaged, showing empathy, care, concern. Then what makes sense is to keep in fact that this now extends outside of the gym. This is something that if you work in a big box commercial gym, you need to understand. It's not as prevalent in other, strength and conditioning boxes and so forth. In niche markets, it's not as necessary, so to speak. I'll explain that later. If you're working in a big box gym where you're getting all these people from the community coming into your gym every day or every night, and then you're going to see them in the grocery store, and you are always on. You're always working. It is one of the reasons that I tell people being a personal trainer at a gym might not be for you, even if you like biology and science. You might want to be at a smaller gym because you're always a representative of yourself, your facility you work at, and your certifications, i.e. us. When we're managing your facility, who's gone through our program and what we've taught. So we don't want you to be the trainer that's doing the fucking dancing on the bar at the local nightclub. I literally heard this. This is how bad it is still prevalent today. Like we used to have issues because the trainers back in the day in the 90s, I say late 80s, all through the 90s, early 2000s, were also like very social, extroverted party people. They looked good, felt good, were popular, were known, and so they were out a lot. So it was one of the things was like, oh man, we got to keep our staff up. Like weekends were a pain in the ass, especially in the summer, to keep your staff, on point. So one of the things that you need to understand is that if you're going to be going to the grocery store, like I just told you, and talking about the bill and getting the clients that way, you can't be the guy seen flipping out at the grocery store because they're taking too long in line. All right? Does that make sense? You have to be the person who holds the door for people when they walk out. You have to be aware of these things. You're on 24/7. It's one of the things that is a big component of being something like a financial advisor. It's one of the things I didn't like about being a financial advisor. It's one of the biggest drawbacks. I'm very introverted. I want to be able to go food shopping and not have to worry about, I heard somebody mention a 401k. Let me come drum up a conversation. Or, this person is the CEO of a company. Let me talk. I want to be able to disconnect. It's one of the things I do like. Yeah, one of the things I do like being about a niche strength and conditioning coach now that I really like working predominantly with combat athletes is I don't, you know what I mean? I get to live how I like to live without it affecting my business too much. I get to speak my mind a little bit more about my stances on things versus worrying about, okay, do I, this happened, this literally got this yesterday on a call from a trainer at a very well-known high-end gym in New Jersey that with all of the political stuff going on with the Olympics, he's much more conservative. He's in a New Jersey gym where they're much more liberal. He's like, it's a nightmare, John. I literally have to listen to people, not only talk about things I disagree with, but then I have to just agree with them because if they complain about me and then they complain to my boss, I could lose my job. Right? Like that sucks. You know what I mean? And again, fucking major diversion there. Stop taking me off my track. Again, to pull people back on why would you want to listen to all this? It's the idea that one of the things we do work with people is there's a level 2 to this biometrics, where what we tell everyone is that we all started out as in the gym trainers and then eventually moved on to being in a studio, then moving on to owning our own facilities. So this track is really built to be the level 1 that if you want to stay in the gym life the rest of your life, this is good. You're good. You keep educating yourself, but you can practice this real well. But it's set as a foundation so that in time, every year or two, you can start elevating yourself and become more niche. Because if you're a personal trainer out there, there's no career in working for a gym. There's just not. I don't care who you are, and I will challenge in a fucking open debate on the economics and the longevity and the probability of any major gym chain owner, investor, anyone on this. It's the numbers and the factor there. You cannot offer a high quality product at a good quality price and have retirements, benefits, and all these things for your family and stay at a 40-hour work week in the coaching field. You just can't. You can't. As a coach in a gym, you can't. There's not one trainer that's making like 6 figures that's not there over 40 hours a week. So it's a very paradoxical existence as a trainer. All right, so here's where we're going to end real quick. All right, so I think this is a pretty good start. So the controllables. So to wrap up and keep in the themes of what we're talking about at the beginning, back a few slides. All right, so if we go back to the slide here. All right. We started to recognize prevalent themes across the geographic area of the industry, commercial gyms that we were working at. We grew up around, worked in, and were consulting. From that, we started looking also at patterns in the educations of certifications as applied to the program design of said trainers in those gyms, so to speak. And as we started, we were like, let's just look for patterns. What are things that, whether it's highly scientific or it's highly holistic, what are prevalent, consistent? And these are some of the things that we found that were very glaring out there more than anything else. How the importance of water in the cellular structure and the cellular job, or whatever the job of the cell is. The interdependence or the interrelationship of fat storage and toxicity, which led us later, which we'll cover, is the interconnection of fat storage and hormone regulation. And then what we then also took a look at is that how underrepresented, again, across any biological, male, female, any race, any gender, anything, anywhere, and anything in between, you need the water. You store toxicity in fats, and fat storage can also be related to this hormone fluctuation, quote unquote insulin, cortisol. And then the next thing is everyone has the ANS system, and everyone's regulated the same way. Everyone's sympathetic system is the catabolic fight or flight, and everyone's parasympathetic is the anabolic rest and recovery. So we know those are consistent in every single fucking person, no matter where you meet them. So we need to understand that those are important to study and to apply in our program design. Keeping with the theme of that, we started looking at, okay, these are great ways we could sell and talk to people. What would be the prevalent consistency of this cancer statistic? These are 1 in 30 all the way down to 1 in 2. And then we started looking at, okay, what are consistencies and patterns when we're hiring trainers? So if you're a coach, why is that important to me? Because if you want to exceed the expectations of somebody interviewing you, if they're not asked this question, bring it up. Say in a lot of the jobs that I've been interviewed for, I've been asked what the last 5 books I've read, and I like to share them with them because I think it speaks volumes both about my dedication to the education of this position that I'm looking to be, and also the idea that I'm very disciplined. I read for 1 hour per day of a book. So if I'm disciplined in that, I can be disciplined to show up on time. I can be disciplined to clock in and out. I can be disciplined to make sure I do whatever the job tasks are that are assigned by the job. All right. And what we're going to end up with is, here is something that we started realizing were indisputable controllables. So we designed this from 2 things. I came up with the name the controllables because it was a contrarian knee-jerk reaction to, as I started studying holistic health and fitness and performance, you started running into this idea that a lot of the coaches wanted you to work on your clients with this idea that control is an illusion. All control is an illusion. And I was like, So me and my debating and what I love to do, and I'll save everybody the debate here, I was like, well, there are kind of some things you can control. So kind of the fly in the face and be a contrarian, I came up with the controllables. I do have the evidence somewhere to earmark this, but this now matches almost simultaneously to the 6 foundational components of the CHEK HLC system. So what this is derived, like I said, my first introduction to holistic lifestyle coaching and that type of approach was CHEK's HLC level 1. So, but before he started really calling these their 6 foundational principles, it was taught. What CHEK used to really hardcore teach was this totem pole. And the totem pole is also a representation of this, but again, not to get off basis. Our process was, we want to understand that these are the things that a human being can control. Therefore, these are the things that we as a coach should be coaching them on. These are also all of the things that are primary pillars of what affects your overall health, from your mentality to your physiology. So your psychological well-being, your spiritual well-being. I'm sorry, what?
Add me back to the Instagram live. My phone locked out.
Got you.
Sorry to cut you off like that.
No worries. I'm about to wrap it up anyway. You're in. Okay. So again, if you're a coach, we started looking at the theme of, okay, well, thought is very important. So we call that our think. So this is the original ones, and I think we now call them think, drink, eat, breathe, sleep, move. But the idea was, okay, we have to understand that as a coach, when you get your certification, all they're really teaching you is how to create movement programs based upon stimulating the sympathetic branch of the system. So if you're a trainer out there, this is what we said in the very beginning with the cartoon. What are you taught as your assessment for the client's health? It's physical. You have them do a step this, or you have them do this on the how many minutes at this incline or speed, or you're testing their VO2 max. Like, everything is physically based. Not one single thing is about their thoughts or their psychology. Maybe you'll ask them, do you drink water? Do you drink soda or caffeine? But a lot of the personal training sales systems ask that question as a money trigger. Like, oh, well, if they say, yeah, I have 4 Diet Cokes a day and the average Diet Coke is $2, that's $8 a day. $8 a day times 30 days a week is $240. See, that's, if they just stop drinking Diet Coke, Chris, you could afford training with me for 30 minutes a week. Like, fuck, that's their psychology of selling. I can't stand it. My psychology of understanding fluid and asking them to drink soda is understanding, okay, how much work do I have to do with the client? Like, where's their health level? If they're drinking a shit ton of soda, I could give it 2 shits with their stepper testes. Right? Food, we all really kind of know how important food is, but that's something that a lot of personal trainers and coaches inside of the gyms are taught to stay away from. Hey, you're not a nutritionist, John. You're not a dietitian. Don't talk about meal plans. Like, here's the thing. I'm telling you right now, there's no legal issues you're facing as a coach to work with meal plans with somebody. The legal ramifications come in more in the field of advertising and guaranteeing. So here's the simple way to get around the fucking all this bullshit that a lot of gyms try to scare you with. you cannot claim that the diet or the foods or the supplements you're using cure or resolve anything. And especially in the coordination of telling someone to stop taking medication. Like, hey, you have stress, take this really high level magnesium and you can come off your Lexapro. Like, you can't do that shit, right? And the reason you can't do that has nothing to do with whether you're a nutritionist or not. The reason that's illegal is because it exposes you to a law that's called practicing medicine without a license. This is a complicated, very strict law. How do I know this? I was involved as an expert witness in a $21 million supplement lawsuit involving a company called Shaklee, Shaklee, super popular, shitty supplement company. And it had to do with copyright infringement, trademark, and blood tests. And this law is so strict that the expert witness on the other side pretty much got made a fool out of because they were claiming to be a doctor. And although they were at one point a doctor, and they are, I guess, a doctor, and they were a doctor of medicine, they had an MD, in the law, it says you are not allowed to hold yourself out to the public. And there's a definition of how many people you need to be holding yourself out to. It's like, I think, a few thousand to be considered public. As a doctor, calling yourself a doctor, if you are not in good standing and registered with the medical board, like of your state. So none of the lawyers call it this. I call it this because, again, having to be a consultant to so many gyms that were scaring trainers, I had to sit the owners down and be like, stop with the bullshit. Then I had to sit down with the, because of course there's always a pompous lawyer that's working with the gym owner that then I have to sit down with. Then I have to sit down with and say, no, let's go through the law. It's, New Jersey state statute, blah, 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 blah. It's Florida state statute, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. Okay. You want to read it? Okay. So here's what the law says. Can't hold yourself out if you're not even registered with the medical board. So you can't hold yourself out as curing anything or so forth. So that woman pretty in trouble. She was the one that was actually not the supplement company. It turned out she was the one that was holding herself out to the public illegally as a doctor because she wasn't registered with the medical board. The other thing too that a lot of people don't know is I can't remember the exact year, but the Supreme Court held up a ruling, or they made a ruling stating that supplements are foods, not medicine. Okay, I don't know, maybe we're getting the storm down here. So here's what we'll wrap up with the legal. Supplements are foods, not medicine. Therefore, they can't be regulated. And you can't, if you take this supplement, I might be losing everybody in a minute because we're at the storm down here in Florida. I'll do another podcast on the legal. Again, this is not legal advice. This is the research we found, which is that the law is more predicated on holding yourself out there as a claim that you can cure or fix the disease, which is like the job of a protected designation doctor. What you can do is work with people on their nutritional choices. You can work with people on meal plans. All right. You can work with people a lot more than what gyms think you can with nutrition certification or not. Again, the other issue is whether you call yourself dietitian, nutritionist is not federally based. Medicine is federally based. If you hold yourself out to a doctor and this is the same thing. It's practicing medicine without a license. It's also practicing law without a license. These are similar protected designations. You have criminal penalties if you do these things. Same thing as law enforcement. That's why there's very few protected designations. As a registered dietitian, you have a protected designation, but it's state level. So states. So for instance, there was a time period in the state of New Jersey that you could call yourself a nutritionist if you had applicable education. That was as general as the statement was. So if you took a fucking $99 weekend certification on nutrition, you were a nutritionist. However, as I started consulting in other states, got to Florida, Florida had a rule that stated a nutritionist and a dietitian are basically the same thing. And if you want to call yourself a nutritionist, you must complete the educational requirements of a dietitian. So when we brought our system down, so that was something I had to learn and coach myself up on people. And again, the idea around the dietitian is that the dietitian can legally say, I am prescribing you this food plan specifically to help this diagnosed disease. As a coach, you don't need to go there. As a coach, you just need to say, listen, you're overweight, without having to get too complex medically, we have some issues with your insulin. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna help you choose some foods that don't require high blood sugar spikes. See what I'm saying? It's a fucking easy way to put someone's diet together. There's no legal ramifications. Where you need to be careful of trainers, and this blows my mind with gym owners, is how many commercial gyms are shoving supplement sales down their trainers' full. As like, oh, you got to put these supplements in, sell them the foundational pack, sell them this pack, that pack, this pack. That's where, even though the legal federal ruling is that it's a food and not a medicine, and therefore it's regulated very differently and less lightly, that's also why it's harder to find good quality supplements. There's a lot less regulation than people think. And the going way off on this topic. But so let's wrap it up there, because I can see my internet going out because I'm getting the storm down here. Let's stop it there. We got 2 hours. I think that's a good seminar length to go. So you have any questions for me? I know I fucking fried your brain. Do you have any questions for me? And then I'll give the coffee tip.
Just a coffee tip. Just that. Honestly, we've been through this. I remember most of this when you first had discussed it with me. And
who the hell's in the boat?
What?
Is that a cat in the window?
Yeah, that's my cat Storm.
What's over your shoulder? Oh, okay. So the light's so bright that I can't see the white part of the cat.
Yeah.
So I just see this weird gray ears.
Jesus.
Yeah, I can see him now, but it was weird, man. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, dude, I should have took all those mushrooms before this. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't take that many. So we're gonna get into that. So here's the thing with the coffee first. All right, so I'm gonna jump out of here, guys. Oh, if you want to see the tip, that's funny. You want to see the tip? You're gonna have to jump over to our link and check us out. Give us a like on YouTube. Follow us for more stuff. Like I said, I'm gonna try and do this at least once, maybe twice a week with Chris, and we're invite some other trainers. I'll throw that out there. If you're a coach and you actually made it this far to the end of it, and you want to, be on this, with Chris or instead of Chris, when he can't make it, I'm very open to anybody out there that wants to jump on this and do this. Fire some questions away and stuff like that. I want to make it enjoyable. I love this. It's passionate, but I just don't want to make it something where I just constantly rant. Because I love this course. I taught it. I love it. And I'm happy to see that, man, so much of it is still relevant. So, guys, thank you for those that came into the live. Check us out on YouTube. We're out.
A good amount of views on that, honestly.
Yeah. I'm going to Florida. Should be in there. I don't care. So this is where I get lazy. I'm like, man, how do people like this? Then they post. They have people. I talked to one guy who's like, man, he says two different fucking people helping this. All right, so let's wrap this up. Here's the coffee tip. So one of the things about coffee is, of course, quality counts. So the higher quality coffee you can get, the better you're going to be right off the bat. Coffee is one of those plants that is extremely heavily sprayed with pesticide. So one of the things is, of course, if you're going to get a higher quality coffee, it's going to cost more money. Therefore, you don't want to be drinking a lot of it. So one of the things that kind of balances out here is a little bit of your maybe your greed / frugalness. It's like you don't want to be buying tub of expensive coffee. So, maybe you can cut your coffee consumption down in half by using a better quality coffee. Right? Those of you that don't want to spend the extra money, you want to just use the current coffee you're using now. First, get rid of processed white sugar. Don't put any white sugar in it. Try not to put any sugar in it, including brown sugar. Just any added sugar to it in general is going to not be good for it. The next thing you want to do is add a fat to it. So there's been some stuff that we've done with clients where we add a little bit of fat to our coffee. And I don't want to be as hyperbolic as some people say, oh, well, when you put coffee in the body, it reacts like sugar. It's like, as a stimulant, it can cause some like blood sugar spiking and so forth. I don't really get into it as much as that I know that if we add a little bit of fat to the coffee, can you start to develop a taste for it where you don't need to add sugar or even white dairy to it. So if you like coconut, this really works out well for you. Just put some coconut oil.
Like coconut oil?
And mix it up a little bit. Yep. Organic pressed, coconut oil. Just put put like a quarter of a teaspoon. Yeah, and then put a little bit more. The other thing that was a big primal, like paleo thing that was big in the beginning, was putting grass-fed butter in your coffee. So if you actually put, again, this also starts to cost more money as one of the tips. Usually the cheapest tip for you in the coffee is just to add a little coconut oil and try and drink it black with coconut oil, no white dairy, no white sugar. Maybe you have to start with lessening the dairy and sugar and then adding the coconut oil and adding more coconut oil and then less and less sugar and dairy. But the ideal situation is to be able to have the coffee black with a little bit of butter or black with a little bit of coconut oil. Another cool thing that you can do, again, there's a less expensive and more expensive way to do this, is I learned this when I was living in Israel. They have a thing, I forget what they call it. I don't think they call it a Turkish coffee. I think we call it here that. But they put cardamom, nutmeg, and I think allspice. Is it cardamom, nutmeg, allspice, maybe cinnamon? But the cardamom is the really special one that I didn't really see anybody else put in the coffee. And I was drinking coffee. I went right to drinking it black because they put those spices in it. So that's another one. Again, you can go cheap and go to a dollar store and get those. They might not have cardamom at the dollar store. And then, of course, on the high side, what you can do is go to a Whole Foods or what's a really Wegmans up there by you, and then you can get like the $5-6 per seasoning. It's up to you. And then, but the number one thing you can do that doesn't cost anything with coffee is don't drink any of it after 12 o'clock. So the more coffee you drink after 12, the more you're going to need it after 12. Coffee does not stimulate you. This is very important to know in the biochemical mechanism. What coffee does is coffee almost is like a painkiller in a way. It stops the sensory of being tired. So your body's still tired and exhausted. It dampens the signaling of it. So it's kind of like when you take a painkiller, whatever is broken in the body is still broken. You just don't feel it.
Yeah.
And think about, as a coach, think about the problem of having a painkiller and then being irresponsible in the idea that, oh, well, I took a painkiller for my ankle, I'm going to go run on it. You're going to fuck that ankle up. That same thing applies to the body with caffeine. If your idea of getting more energy is, well, I just need a cup of coffee before my workout, you're fucking hurting the client. Medium to long term, you're hurting the client because the body is in a decreased state. And I use decreased to be general about the idea that it's either malnutrition or doesn't have enough sleep, doesn't have enough food, doesn't have enough hydration. It's in a deconditioned state. And then and the body's way to protect it so you don't get injured is to say, hey, you're tired, you need to rest. I either need food or sleep. And you ignore it by drinking coffee, you're increasing the percentage chance of injuring the client or yourself by drinking. And even worse with the pre-workout supplement. So what I would do is part of that has to do with the fact, and you're going to decrease their ability to get stage 4 sleep at night. All right. So here's the thing.
Stage 4 is REM,
coffee
right?
has a 12-hour. What?
Stage 4 is REM sleep, right?
Yep. Stage 4 is your REM sleep. Yep. So if you stop drinking coffee at 12 in the afternoon, by 12 midnight, half of it should be out of your system. If you drink coffee and add some fat to it, it doesn't shock into the system as fast. And I believe it comes out a little easier. I forget about leaving the system, but I know it doesn't slam into the system as bad. And you actually, and it doesn't hit you as hard, and it sustains a little bit more evenly. So that's one of the good effects is that's the idea of, okay, if I spend a little bit of money on some high quality coffee and I get a little bit of this coconut oil, I should drop, half my coffee consumption down. or I should at least be consuming it past 12. And again, for those of you out there, if you're a coach working with somebody, you're trying to do it yourself. If you're like, fuck, I'm drinking coffee at 8 o'clock at night. It's the same concept as setting your timer and reading 1 hour a day. Tried it maybe 25 to 30 minutes each day or each week, depending on your progression level. Make sure, like, if you're having coffee up to 8 o'clock, next week it's no coffee after 7. The week after that, no coffee after 6. Work yourself down. If somebody wants to bench 315 pounds, do you put fucking 315 on the bar and say, get at it, boy? No, you work your way up to it. So the same thing is you want to work your way off things just as much as you work your way up to them. So if coffee, immediate quick tip with coffee, don't drink it past 12. Next tip with coffee, a little bit of extra money, put some coconut oil or some grass-fed butter in it. You really, fats, remember, we're getting ahead, but remember what we said in the beginning, fats have all the toxins stored in it. It works the same way for animals and mammals. So when you have something like butter that comes from an animal, if that's a highly stressed animal, guess where all the toxins of all the stress and the bad food is going to be? In the fat. What produces the milk and so forth? Fat, right? So again, that's where dairy can get a bad name, not getting off subject. But so this is why it's important to have a high quality. You want to have your fats to be high quality. The next level up is you can spend some money on some high quality coffee. You should drop less of it. So those are your kind of stages what to do with caffeine or coffee. Okay. All right. So what I'd like you to do today, Chris, is get off here. I know you're exhausted. I drained the shit out of you. I want you to pick your 1 hour a day. Pick your 1 hour a day. I'm going to pick one too. And then we'll be like study buddies. I'm going to look at I'm an old man, so I have to look at my calendar that I wrote. But I'm gonna put here's something to do too if you're a coach out there. This is like you got to find your own tribe when you work at the gym. You know, hopefully you're not alone. Maybe you can find somebody else in your gym that's as open-minded as you about helping like have some discipline. So Chris and I will kind of do it for you guys in the way that Chris is gonna pick. Nope, Chris is gonna jump the fuck off. He's out of here. All right, I'll make sure Chris sticks to this. So what we're gonna do? Oh, you're there. Okay. All right. I thought I lost you. I was like, this is what we're gonna do.
Oh, my camera.
We're gonna leave. But yeah, right. We're gonna pick 1 hour each day. That's gonna be our Nightingale hour. That's gonna be 1 hour that we're gonna pick to work on one thing, whether it's read a book, learn something new, whatever it is. All right. We're gonna text it to each other. Hey, mine's gonna be Mondays at 9. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure over the next few weeks that we're doing this, we check in with each other on this show. You're like, okay, did you get all your hours in? So this is something you guys can do too. Coaches is you kind of get a learning buddy. You guys kind of work on the accountability with each other. Same way you have a learning buddy. All right. So again, I know that it was long. This is set up to be to give you guys an idea. It's about 8-9 hours times 4 days. So yeah, you're looking about a 35 to 42 hour course. This was taught every day for 4 or 4.5 days straight. And then you had an exam at the end. And then if you passed the exam, you kept your job and you went on to be a trainer. So anyway, please give me some comments in the bottom, things you like, things you didn't like, things you question, things you disagree with. I do welcome that. Just be respectful and be intellectual. That's all. Otherwise, Chris, I appreciate you doing this. We'll try and do it again next Sunday if time allows. Otherwise, everybody set your 1 hour, your Nightingale hour, and stay tuned. We have a lot of more clips coming from the normal podcast. And then I'd say in a few days, you'll get some educational clips based off of this. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. Chris, thank you, sir. And I'm going to take you off the screen, but stick around, okay? All right, brother. Everyone out there, I really appreciate everyone coming by. And we will talk to many of you very soon. This has been Biometrics Level 1. Chris, hold on backstage.